What's going on, YouTube? Are you using folding benches like these? If you are, I have potentially a better solution at around the same cost. Let's jump into it. My name is Andy, this is Cedar River Woodworking, and welcome to the shop.
I live inside my own.
These benches are great, they're just small. So I've kind of thought of a few different ideas, and let me show you a bench that folds up but also gives you a lot more footprint. So this is going to be the first video of our DIY garage build out. These videos are going to be aimed at those people that have garages that they still want to park in and need their tools to be able to move around. So a folding option, and even one that can roll around, is going to be a great solution. If that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's jump into this. So I figured you probably want a preview of this thing before we actually jump into the project. So here you can see I have a folding top and a leg that wants to swing out. I have another leg over there that's going to swing out for me also. This thing is 60 inches wide and it is 24 inches deep. So you can get a lot of projects done on this thing. Oh man, the lights went out. Well, gladly we have today's sponsor in our pocket, and that is Olight flashlights. When Olight reached out and asked if I would like to check out their Arc Pro Ultra, I was hands down ready to give it a try. Now, I already have the an Arcfeld Pro in my disc golf bag. In my truck, I carry a Seeker 2. I've got their flashlights all over the place, so I already know that they're a great company. Now, one of the things that I really like about their flashlights is the magnetic bottom. So there's one time that I was doing a Christmas party and we lost power throughout the entire city. And I was like, man, I've got this Arc Pro in my pocket. I know what I can do. So I stuck that flashlight right on top of an overhead fan, turned it on high, and that thing ran for 6+ hours and didn't miss a beat. We opened presents, we played card games, and we just had a lot of fun until the power came back on. So this thing was a lifesaver in an emergency situation. Now, like I had said, I have been carrying their products for a long time. Now, this is an Arcfeld that I got a while ago, and it's made out of brass and has an American flag etched into it. Now, the Arc Pro Ultra is a huge upgrade from this Arcfeld. Now, on top of this one having two modes, a UV mode and a flashlight mode, this now has UV, a spotlight, and a floodlight. So you can seamlessly transition from all of them just by flicking the switch right here. And another cool thing is it has a laser on it. So you can go ahead and have a laser pointer in any of those modes if you need them. Now with the magnetic base, normally their charging system has been right here. So you just have a magnetic piece that goes right on the bottom, or you can put it onto a charging base. And that's been really cool, but what if you don't have that? It's a proprietary system that's kind of hard if you forget it. So the Arc Pro Ultras now have a USB charging system. This is USB-C. Now, if you're an EDC guy like me and you like to carry around flashlights, I would highly recommend checking out the Arc Pro Ultra. It has lots of upgraded features on it, like 1300 lumens on high, the laser. This thing is great. And when you can go from a floodlight to a spotlight seamlessly, so you can reach out and see something a little bit further away, it is a fantastic tool to have in your pocket. I will have a link down in the description below, and I want to thank Olight one more time for sponsoring this video. Now let's get over and I'll show you how to build this bench. So for some of the things that you're going to need for this project is some plywood. This is some 3/4 inch plywood, and I already had it cut by the home center. Now, most home centers do have a panel saw and they will be able to cut all of this for you. So this all came out of one 4x8 sheet of 3/4 inch plywood. It is 60 inches in length. These two pieces here are 8.5 inches in width, and these two pieces here are 15 inches in width. This will leave you a decent chunk left over, so you can have some more shop projects in the future out of some pretty nice plywood. So the next thing that you'll need is some 2x4s. You can see here I have 8. The plans should be only 7, but I'm the type of person that I always grab an extra just in case I screw something up. Now, speaking of plans, I will have written plans available, and that's going to be over on my Etsy site. Now, I'm not going to gatekeep any measurements or anything like that, The link to that will be down in the description below, along with all of the tools that I use. All right, so all of these cuts are going to be square cuts, and that means that you're going to set your miter saw or whatever else to 0 degrees. This is also 90 degrees. We're going to go ahead and cut one of these 2x4s to 70 inches. Next, we need to cut 2 at 50 inches. We need to cut one board at 57 inches. Man, cutting these long ones, I really need to have a support out here. Then we're going to cut 8 boards at 34 inches. Now, if you have a setup where you have a stop block, you can do that for all of these, and I actually recommend doing that because then you'll make sure that you have exactly the same length. Now you can see that I just have a bare miter saw here, and I need to do something about some wings so I can get some stop blocks going. I do think that that's going to be an upcoming video. Now, if you do have any recommendations or requests on something that we can build for either one of these shops, let me know down in the comments section below, down in the doobly-doos. Now, if you are using a stop block, I would recommend holding down the piece that is trapped between the saw blade and the stop block, and also making sure that your saw comes to a complete stop before lifting it, because that saw blade, it can catch the edge of that board and cause a kickback, and it can throw that piece right up into your face. So after we have the 8 pieces at 34 cut, we're going to need 4 pieces at 18. Four pieces at 5 inches, and 4 pieces at 22 inches. With everything cut out, let's go ahead and get this sucker assembled. So here I have 4 of the 34-inch long pieces. Got them stacked here. And now what we're going to do with them is I have 2 stacks of 2. I'm just going to take the top pieces and rotate them away from each other. Now we are going to have 2 L legs, one that looks like this, and then we're going to have another leg that looks like this. Sorry about the audio here, guys. It seems that my microphone is cutting in and out on me. But what I'm explaining here is that I'm going to go ahead and screw these together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pilot countersink combination bit to go ahead and pre-drill the holes, and then I'm going to come back with it and I'm going to use some screws to secure everything together. And then I'm going to be using 2.5-inch decking screws for this. Now you can use carpentry screws or whatever you would like. This is what I have on hand, so it's what I'm going to use. Now, one thing that is good about this bench here is it came with a couple clamps, but if you have some, just go ahead and use those. I clamp them together so that I know that they're nice and square to each other, and these faces are going to be flat. So I'm going to drill my pilot holes, and then I'm going to drive in some screws. All right, so the next step that we're going to do is we busted out the Craig pocket hole system. Now we are going to be using 2.5-inch Craig screws. Now I have used those same deck screws on these Craig holes before. It does work, but we're gonna go ahead and use the Craig screws. Now, one thing that I didn't mention, and I didn't do on camera, but use some glue on all of these joints. It's really going to help make sure everything is nice and sturdy and nothing is moving around. So we are going to put holes on both ends of both of the 50-inch long boards. I do have this set up for the 2.5-inch long screws. So now that we have the pocket holes in the ends of the 50-inch long stretchers, we need to attach this to our legs. That's going to be these L sections. Now I'm going to make sure that the 2x4 with the full side exposed, so this side here, is going to face towards the stretcher. And I know, here's the glue, type on 2. Just going to put some glue here on the end. Now when you're using pocket hole screws, I always like to clamp everything together just to make sure that nothing slides around. I'm going to be using a square to make sure that everything is nice and square here before I get it all tightened down. And these screws that we are using are the 2.5-inch Craig screws. So now that we have the top stretcher on, I'm going to slide this up a little bit. And this is why I want a bigger bench, just because nothing really seems to fit on here right. I'm going to take a 5-inch piece here, and I'm going to go ahead and use it as a spacer down at the bottom. And then we are going to add the other stretcher down here. So now that we have this side attached, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. So here is the back section put together. So you can see it has the little L's at the end here, like this. And one thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a brace across here, corner to corner, and that's going to make sure that none of this wants to rack or do anything weird. We're going to do that in a future step, so I will show you that here in a little bit. Now we need to figure out these folding legs. Now these folding legs are going to be a combination of things, and one of them is a pretty special joint that is going to make this very, very strong. All right, so now we need to do the next step of our legs. What we're going to need is one of the 34-inch long pieces, a 5-inch long piece, a 22-inch long piece, and 2 of these 18-inch long pieces. Technically we don't need these, but it's going to be what goes in this place. So essentially what we're going to be doing is making half lap joints. It's almost a half lap, so that's why I say essentially. We are going to be doing additive joinery. And what that is going to be is we're going to take our 5-inch long piece down here at the bottom, and then one of these 18-inch pieces is going to tell us then where we need to put our 22-inch long piece. And once we have all of that in place, it's going to give us 2 places where these 18-inch long stretchers go. And that is going to make sure that these don't rack or move once these 2 pieces are screwed and glued into place. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get some glue down in here. And the 5-inch long piece. Now this is going to sit flush with the end of the 34-inch long piece. And one of those things that I like to do is I like to put a clamp on it so I know that it's square to each other or parallel with each other side to side. Then I'm going to use the same method of the pilot hole and then drive in a screw. And a staple in the end of that. That's really going to screw some stuff up. Okay, now we're going to take one of the 18-inch long pieces and butt it on top of the 5-inch long piece. Now that's going to tell us where this 22-inch piece needs to go. And I'm going to go ahead and snug it down here against this piece. Now we're going to go ahead and snug down that 22-inch long piece against these 2 pieces here. Now you can do this entire construction without any of these screws. You just have to wait for the glue to completely dry with these clamps in place. So once that's done, here is what that is going to look like. You can see what I'd like to call a dado here and a rabbet over here, open for these 18-inch pieces to fit right in. Now you can see these don't want to rack or do anything funny. And then this will give this a nice ledge to sit on. Now once we have this one made, we need to go ahead and make 3 more. And I'm just gonna go ahead and do that off camera. So here's our 4 legs that we have put together. And if you guessed that the next step is to put the 18-inch stretchers into place, you're correct. So we are going to put some glue down here in the dados, or the grooves, whatever you'd like to call them. And then we're gonna take our 18-inch long pieces and set them down into place. So you can get these pretty tight in here if you would like. Take a square and make sure that everything is nice and square when you get these set in. And then once we get all that lined up, we're gonna go ahead and screw and glue all this into place too. Got the bottoms in there, and now we go ahead and do the tops as well. Right, here we go. Now these are going to be our folding legs. We're gonna go ahead and do the other set right here. This is gonna consume the other 2 18-inch pieces that you need. So here we have the frame of our bench set up. You can see these are our folding legs right here. And I have everything sat upside down. And the reason why I have everything upside down is because I want the top of the bench to all be completely flush. As I look at this, I can see that these legs protrude just a tiny bit. Come on down here and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm not sure how well this translates across to the camera, but I can see that this section is slightly higher than this part of my bench. So off camera, I'm just gonna trim these down a little bit and make sure that everything fits a little bit better. Now, when you are cutting these, make sure that you round over all these edges just by sanding, or if you have a round over bit, use that on all of these points that are going to contact the floor. Otherwise, you'll get some tear out as you drag it across the floor. Oh, come on, Project Andy. Learn to turn on your microphone. So we're going to be using these 3.5-inch hinges so that we can get this to pivot correctly. You're going to want to make sure that the barrel goes on the inside of the hinging part. So we're going to be using a VIX bit, or a self-centering bit, to make sure that our pilot holes are in the correct position. We're going to pilot hole, and then we're going to go ahead and drive in the screws that we need. Now we need to do the other 3 hinges. So with the bench base flipped upright, this is what it should look like when you unfold the legs. With the base completely assembled, I have it unfolded, and I have one of the 8.5-inch wide pieces and one of the 15-inch wide pieces laid out. I'm going to use 3 more of these hinges, one that's going to be centered at 30 inches, and the 2 outside ones are going to be 4 inches away from the outside edge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trace around them so that I can then cut it out later with a jigsaw. I have these spaced out with 2 1/4-inch spacers so that I know that there's enough room for this to hinge. As I'm cutting this out with the jigsaw, I'm cutting outside of the lines because all I'm trying to do is make a pocket that is big enough for these hinges to sit inside of. And what it's going to do is the hinges are going to set down low enough so that the folding legs do not run into them when you fold them shut. I tell you what, Editor Andy is going to kick the crap out of me. I forgot to plug in the mic and we didn't have any audio for the last section. So I apologize about the voiceover, but I got you back here. I also apologize about all of the audio issues that we've had throughout this. So moving forward, we got our notches cut out here, and I have the 2 sections of these 3/4-inch plywood stacked on top of each other. Now you can see these hinges will just drop right in these holes here. So I still have that same 1/4-inch gap, and that gap is going to help when this hinges, these corners of this board aren't going to hit each other. So now we just need to install these. I have some 3/4-inch screws. So with the thickness of this plate and it all being 3/4 of an inch, it will not protrude through the other side. So I'm going to secure in all 3 of these hinges. So I've got this barrel centered over top of the gap here so that we'll have a good place for it to hinge. I should be able to take out these spacers now, and we can test to see if this thing actually hinges. All right, so now we need to get these 2 pieces attached to each other. what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some wood glue all the way across these panels, and then I'm going to use some screws. These are 1.25 inch screws, and all that's gonna do is just clamp this together until the wood glue sets up. The screws aren't actually needed, but it's what I'm gonna do to kind of accelerate the process. This gap is a little bit small, so we may need to sand these edges so that they pass past each other so it can get all the way down, but this should be a good gap. So that is one section all secured together. Then I'm gonna go ahead and do the 15-inch pieces. I'm just gonna do that off camera. So it might be kind of hard to see here, but this top board here, this is actually the bottom side of the tabletop, is actually sticking out a little bit. So when I raised this all the way up, these boards did interfere with each other. So all I'm doing is raising this to a 90-degree angle and then pushing it against it. And then all I'm gonna do is just flush trim the front edge here, and that'll take care of any of the gap that we need through this area. So we are coming up to the final stages of this project. I know that I still have 2 more boards left over, and those are gonna be for bracing. I'm not 100% convinced that I actually need them, but I will show you at the end what those could be used for if you have any issues with racking or anything like that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take some glue and put it along the back edge here, and we're gonna get this top secured. Now I'm gonna be using 2.5-inch decking screws to secure this. Just gonna go ahead and make sure that this is all flush. The ends of this top should fit flush with the ends of the base. And we are going to overhang this back section 1.5 inches. The reason why that's 1.5 inches is for the back bracing if you need it. I scribed a line here at 2.25 inches, so I'll know exactly where I need to put my screws. And I'm just gonna put these screws about 8 to 10 inches apart. All right, so here's going to be the finished product. Now it is fairly sturdy. I know that I'll be able to put my miter saw on top of here or work on top of it if I need to. And all that you really need to do is fold in these legs. And you'll be flush against the wall here. Now, it is a little bit tippy, so if we have a back brace on it, or you can even splay those legs out just a little bit, and that will help it not tip over when it's in the stored position. Now the back brace you can screw to the wall if you don't want this thing to be mobile, or you could put some casters on the bottom of it and roll this thing around the shop if you needed to. So what were these other 2 boards gonna be? Now this shorter one here, it was going to be a brace between the 2 legs. I was gonna cut a couple notches on the end of it, and then it'll wedge between the 2 legs and keep them splayed. Now, when it's in the out position, I don't really have any issues with it trying to collapse on itself, so that's really not that big of a deal. So I'm actually going to cut that one out. I will have it included in the plans if you want that. Then the next board was going to be a diagonal brace like this. Now this diagonal brace will help keep from racking, but honestly, this thing's pretty sturdy. So I don't need to do any racking prevention on it. So a few final things that I would say: sand this down, flush trim anywhere that it needs to. That overhang is about 1/2 inch if you're going to use the same process that I did. Otherwise you can bevel those edges so they don't interfere with each other. So I would say this is a pretty good project for a weekend job, and it gets you a nice workbench in your space. If you have any other suggestions, let me know down in the comments below. Otherwise, my name is Andy. This has been Cedar River Woodworking, and I'll see you in the next video.